the game.
Hi, I'm Kelsa Dickey, the CEO of the Financial Coach Academy and my financial coaching business, Fiscal Fitness Phoenix. My coaching journey began more than a decade ago with me helping people for free from my dining room table. What was once a little business of mine has grown into a 7-figure company that employs a team of people. My goal is simple, to help you fall more and more in love with financial coaching. I believe financial coaching is the most rewarding way to make a living. If you are an aspiring financial coach or have been coaching for years, I'm here to help you create a business you love that gets your clients massive results. Let's get to it.
Hey coaches, welcome to episode 61 of the pod. I have a quick announcement. Next month, we are releasing our newest financial coaching specialty toolkit. These toolkits are the exact coaching concepts you can do during coaching sessions with your clients. Each one is truly a toolkit of various conversations, exercises, handouts, and tools that you can use to drive a specific topic home with your clients. And the one we're releasing next month is for those specializing in coaching small business owners. It's titled Cash Flow Planning and Control for Small Business Owners. And if you want to be the first to hear about it and get notified of any pre-launch promotions we might be running, head over to financialcoachingtoolkit.com, scroll towards the bottom of that page, and add your name to the toolkit waitlist. And so you will be the first to get notified. Today, we are going to talk about the number one secret to financial coaching success. And then the next few episodes, we're going to get technical and explore one specific financial topic, but over 3 episodes. So get excited about some financial talk coming up. But first, today's episode feels surprisingly important to me. I feel some pressure to properly express myself on today's episode, and I sincerely hope that I get this right. I hope you pick up what I am trying to lay down. Today, I'm going to talk about someone who has impacted my journey as a financial coach probably more significantly than anyone else. I've spent a ton of time reflecting this past year, mainly on the kind of impact that I want to have, but I've also reflected on the past and my journey so far. I've shared some of the people I trusted that taught me some painful lessons, and I talked about some of the coaches I've had who I feel really blessed to have found along the way. The crazy thing is that the person who has had the biggest impact on my business isn't a business coach or a financial professional in the slightest. He's also not someone I've ever met, and I am pretty sure he has no idea that I exist. And yet he has profoundly impacted the way I view my work with my clients. Let me first start by humbly saying that when I think of the kind of impact I want to have during my life, I would not even be on the same spectrum that he is on when it comes to the impact he is having on our world. He is at a whole new level. And so by no means in this episode am I trying to say that I in some way compare myself to him. Please know that. I do not. There is no comparison, okay? I truly believe, and this is not an exaggeration, that he is a real hero who walks among us. The work he is doing is truly changing the world, and he is doing it right now while we were all alive to witness it, which I think is really cool. So I would love to tell you about him first, and then share specifically how he has impacted my business and my coaching specifically, because chances are it's not going to be obvious when I share his accomplishments with you. So this hero's name is Bryan Stevenson. Mr. Stevenson is the founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative, a human rights organization in Montgomery, Alabama. He has argued and won multiple cases at the U.S. Supreme Court, including a 2019 ruling protecting condemned prisoners who suffer from dementia, and a 2012 ruling that banned mandatory life imprisonment without parole sentences for all children 17 and younger. If you are listening to this episode from outside of the U.S., you did just hear me correctly, that until recently, 2012, and only thanks to Mr. Stevenson, there were mandatory life without parole sentences being given to children. I know that this is not the purpose of this podcast, but I don't really care. It is no longer mandatory thanks to Mr. Stevenson, but we all must know that. The United States stands alone as the only nation that hands down sentences of life without parole for crimes committed before someone turns 18 still, it's just not mandatory anymore. But we still are the only nation that hands down sentences of life without the possibility of parole for crimes committed before somebody turned 18 years old. So let me just restate that so it's clear. We are the only nation that sentences children to die in prison. It is literally considered by international law to be inhumane and cruel. And this is just one of the important fights that Mr. Stevenson champions. Like I said, there is no comparison, right? He and his staff have helped release 140 wrongly convicted prisoners on death row, and they have won relief for hundreds of others wrongly convicted or unfairly sentenced. He has initiated major new anti-poverty and anti-discrimination efforts that challenge inequality in America. He is responsible for the creation of the Legacy Museum, the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, and Freedom Monument Sculpture Park. His memoir, Just Mercy, is a must-read, and it's also been turned into a movie starring Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx, as well as the victim of injustice. I think it's really important that we say his name too, Walter Macmillan. Mr. Stevenson is a visionary and champion of justice. Like I said, he is a true hero, and he is doing his work right now. Those are just a few accomplishments, but there are so many more. The thing I appreciate the most about Mr. Stevenson is that he has this ability to see humanity for what it is, flaws and all. He does his work in some of the saddest and most tragic parts of our existence. He doesn't shy away from speaking about them, and yet he finds meaning and hope throughout all of it. And he does all of this while inspiring others to aspire towards the better parts of our humanity. I really and truly find him remarkable. There are no other humans like him. He's amazing. I devour anything and everything Mr. Stevenson does. So if he's being interviewed on a podcast or if he recommends a book, it immediately goes to the top of my list. I feel incredibly blessed, that I got to first hear him speak back in 2015 before I knew who he was. I attended a conference and he was one of the speakers. I literally had no idea who he was at the time, and I can honestly say his presentation that day changed me. I am going to link to some of my favorite interviews or videos of Mr. Stevenson, and I would love to invite you to check them out. You should totally set up a Google alert for his name. And if you ever have the opportunity to see him speak in person, please do. I'm going to share my takeaways, but I'm not going to do it justice. That's simply not possible. The way he sees the world, sees people, is beautiful and inspiring and heartbreaking and sad and real all at the same time. Trust me on this. Please do not take my word for it. Please go and consume as much as you can of Mr. Stevenson. I'm going to share, like I said, some links, and I would love for you to share your thoughts with me after you listen. I would genuinely love to hear what you think of the things he shares. Like I said, I'm going to link to some of those favorites in the show notes for this episode. And now I would like to try and share with you how he has positively influenced my coaching business specifically, and the ways that I work with my clients. Certainly the most profound way is really what Mr. Stevenson speaks about in his TED Talk and in so many of his conversations, and that is the power of proximity. He talks about proximity as getting close to the people and places that experience exclusion and suffering. He says that the way you begin to understand the problems of the world is by getting proximate. It allows you to see and hear things that you cannot see and hear from a distance. The closer you are to something, the better you understand it and the better your chances are to actually solve it. He says, the power of proximity urges us to overcome our fears and courageously cross the deep dividing lines within our society. Again, I cannot possibly do this justice in the way he can, but here's how this relates to financial coaching for me. When I work with my clients, I am in the thick of it with them. I am combing through the details of their situation. We're talking about the hard steps. I'm not just giving advice and then sending them on their way. I am there with them every step of the way. Proximity, and really the power of proximity, I think this is the key difference between financial education and financial coaching. It's the key difference between what I do and probably what you do as a financial coach. And let's say a financial influencer who just talks into the microphone across a great divide between them and the person they're helping. I believe proximity is the difference between good results and great results. Proximity is the difference between good coaching and great coaching. And proximity is the difference between low ticket programs and high value programs. I remember my first attempts at my offer and program back in the day. I started with like a 4-session pack. So someone could buy like 4 sessions at a time and use them whenever. Then I did 1 session per month for a little while. I don't remember how long it was that I tried that. And I remember when I first launched the program that I have now, where I meet with clients a lot at first, right? Like weekly in that first month. And we are probably talking almost every single day. And I remember feeling badly when I first started meeting with my clients as much as I do. I questioned whether it was a good business decision. Like, am I delivering too much? And yet it was what I felt like was needed in order to really create the changes that I was looking for with clients and their money. There are some clients where in the first couple of weeks of coaching, we are talking almost every day because there are so many moving pieces, and it's really and truly a daily game time decision on how we're climbing out of a financial hole. And I am there with them. And I used to feel badly about that because no other coaches were meeting one-to-one with their clients as often as that. Until I listened to Mr. Stevenson talk about the power of proximity. And I realized the kind of impact I want to have, it requires that closeness. I don't want to just kind of solve a financial problem. I want to totally solve it. I don't want to just kind of sort of support my clients. I want them to feel the most support possible. I don't want to see the problem from my point of view. I want to see it from my client's point of view. I don't want to give them general advice. I want to wrap my arms around them and their situation and give them the best advice for them. You know, I've talked in previous episodes about some of the seedy parts of the coaching industry, and I really do enjoy listening to some of the like life coach snark YouTubers and following the subreddits and all that jazz. But one thing I think they sort of touch on but don't quite nail is this idea of proximity. So let me explain. The concept of proximity, I believe, has been 100% totally misconstrued in the coaching industry, and it makes me really sad. Some coaches sell a package. Oh, God, this makes me cringe a little bit. And they say the benefit is that you get to be close to them, that the proximity to them is the value. It's like just being in their space and in their energy, right, is like the value. And, ooh, you're going to get these results because you get to be close to them. And I think that is totally wrong. I think it's totally backwards. That would be like me saying that the power of proximity means that someone gets to be in my presence, right? I know if you're listening to the podcast and not a YouTube video, then you can't see my face right now, but it's a little cringeworthy, right? Think about it. How many coaches have you seen promote this idea that by enrolling in their program, you get access to them? Ooh, right? And let me just say that right here and now, that when I think back on what I disliked most about that business coach that I hired and the copywriting team that I hired, and what I didn't like about what they were doing to my messaging, is that this is 100% what they believed. They made my marketing about people getting access to me, and it went completely against what I actually believe is important. So no wonder I hated it. Because when I say the power of proximity, I am not talking about my clients being able to get close to me. I am talking about my ability to get close to them and their problem. The ownership, the responsibility is in the opposite direction that it is oftentimes mostly discussed in the coaching space. The ownership and responsibility is oftentimes put on the client. It's like, you're in my presence, and just by being around me or this other coach, that makes you successful with your money. And that is not what proximity means. And you know what? Just because I believe that coaching isn't about me, I just want to be really clear about this, okay? That I'm not special necessarily. That doesn't mean I have some limiting beliefs about myself. I can think that I'm good at what I do and have confidence in myself while also believing that the power comes from what me and the client do together. The power of proximity is not about how close the clients get to me. It's about how close I can get to them and their problem. It drives me crazy seeing coaches who are like, you know why my program is $20,000? Because you get access to me. What in the ever-loving F is that? Let me reiterate this because you might have a coach who is trying to tell you the opposite. The value of your program, the results you help people achieve, the power of proximity is not about how close the clients can get to you, their coach. It's about how close you get to them and their problem and what you do together. And that ties in perfectly to the other thing Mr. Stevenson talks about that is related to the power of proximity, yet slightly different. This has also positively impacted my business, and it's the idea of exploring the nuance of humanness and coming from a place of empathy and compassion. He says that, quote, each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done, unquote. My clients often come to me thinking about the horrible decisions they've made with money, the mistakes that created their current situation. They are experiencing oftentimes so much regret and shame and disappointment. And I can see and hear about those things while also seeing my clients for more than just those things. They are more than the worst things they've ever done. I don't see a person who has been bad with money as a person who is bad with money. I see them as a whole person with complexities like all of us. Mr. Stevenson talks about how we must seek to understand the nuanced experiences of those who suffer. And when he says this, he's referring to those who suffer from and experience inequality and injustice. I think about it as those who suffer from a hard life, a poor life, a stressful life, a life of worry and overwhelm. I think of my mom who struggled with money my entire childhood and who also truly, completely was exhausted with life. I think about if someone had just said, I see you and I'm here to help, let's do this together, how that could have changed the trajectory of her life. She ended up abusing a number of things as a coping mechanism. She filed for bankruptcy more than once, and she's a good person who has lived a hard life. It's complex, right? She's done many worst things, and yet she is more than those things. Mr. Stevenson says that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. That had a profound impact on me because we do often think about money as the tool we use to bridge the gap between poverty and wealth. But what if it wasn't money? What if it was freedom? What if it was hope? I will usually say that I help people use money as a tool to live their best life. But what if the tool we all wielded as financial coaches wasn't the money in the bank account or the numbers on the spreadsheet? What if the tool wielded were the glimpses and desires for freedom and that more is possible? What if that was what we gave to the clients? Mr. Stevenson says that your hope is your superpower. That can be challenging and it can be exhausting, but it is necessary. Injustice prevails where hopelessness persists, and so hope has to be your orientation. That is the quote from Mr. Stevenson. I'm going to read it again because I absolutely love it. He says, your hope is your superpower. That can be challenging and it can be exhausting, but it is necessary. Injustice prevails where hopelessness persists, and so hope has to be your orientation. He also says this, if you are willing to get closer to people who are suffering, you will find the power to change the world. And gosh, I just love that. I think about my clients and how in the first month, we are talking every week, like I said, if not every day for some of them. We are right there with them, day by day, riding that roller coaster ride of changes with them. We are so close to their experience, as close as we can get. The power of proximity and exploring the nuance of humanness are two lessons that I learned from Mr. Stevenson that have impacted me greatly as a coach. So let me wrap up this episode with just a few finer points. First, I actually think this is why niching down can be so powerful. This is why focusing on a particular community of people, especially a marginal community, can be so darn powerful. It's the proximity you can gain and the ability to lead with empathy and compassion that becomes your greatest asset. Lastly, the proximity and empathy that I'm talking about is why therapy may be necessary. I have a therapist. I am proud to have a therapist. Sometimes I am talking with her about family dynamics, because we all have a flavor of crazy in our families, I think. And sometimes I talk about the weight of my clients' struggles. It's not that I necessarily internalize their struggles, but I do feel intense sadness for them sometimes. Sometimes I grieve thinking about how hard their life is and find myself wishing it was easier for them. And sometimes it can be hard to feel as if you're only helping this small amount compared to how massive the problem is. It's okay to want to talk with someone about that every so often. So 2 takeaways I hope that you gain from Mr. Stevenson and this episode. Number 1, the way you begin to understand the problems of the world is by getting proximate. It allows you to see and hear things that you cannot see and hear from a distance. The closer you are to something, the better you understand it, and the better your chances are to actually solve it. And number 2, each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. I would love to hear your thoughts on today's episode, Coach. Next episode, we are going to kick off part 1 of a 3-part series all about how to pay yourself as a business owner. It's going to be fabulous for you and also for your clients if you help those with a business or side hustle. So get ready to take lots of notes. And just a reminder, if you want to get, or want to be able to better analyze your own business finances, or you plan to coach small business owners on their finances, you will want to get your hands on our new specialty toolkit that is getting released next month. It is titled, again, Cash Flow Planning and Control for Small Business Owners. And you can add your name to the waitlist by going to financialcoachingtoolkit.com and scrolling all the way to the bottom. Let's get to your reflection question today, Coach. Coaching is all about figuring out what you think of something, how that impacts how you feel, and the actions you take. So I like to end every episode with a question for you to reflect on. The purpose is to help you gain clarity on today's topic, but it also creates the opportunity for you to share your thoughts with me. I would love to hear from you. If you are watching on YouTube, drop a comment with your answer to today's question, or you can join the conversation in our free community for financial coaches called Financial Coaches Unite. You can find the link in the show notes. Here is your question, Coach. How can you become closer to your work and your people? How can you become closer to your work and your people? I believe financial coaching is the best and most rewarding way to make a living. I truly love what I do. If you're ready to learn and see how to become a profitable, successful financial coach, check us out at financialcoachacademy.com to learn more about our online programs, free trainings, and events. As always, I love hearing from you. If you have any questions for this podcast, submit them at financialcoachacademy.com/podcast. And if you love this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review, and make sure you hit the thumbs up button on YouTube. It would mean the world to me. I'll see you next week, Coach.